Hello, team players. So, I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for a bard build, and we've definitely got one of those today. But before I get into that, just remember that I'm having some issues with getting paid on YouTube. So remember that this build will be on this channel as well as my new channel, Team Player Gaming Plus. If you guys like my content, I would definitely recommend you go subscribe over there, because the rest of the builds in this party will be over there. This build will be on both channels, and if you're new to Pathfinder 2e, I would definitely recommend going to check out my TikTok, as that's where I cover that kind of thing. For this build's roles, we've got a lot to talk about. It'll cover our status buffs and our status debuffs, as well as our multi-target damage, our different damage types. It can also target different defenses. In fact, every defense in the game. It covers our burst damage. It also covers our single target DPR, as well as our recall knowledge, and some of our burst healing. But the next build in this party is going to be a whole lot better at our burst healing and our out of combat healing. For today's Ancestry, we rolled Lotus Leshy. This allows us to move across non-damaging liquids at half our normal speed. In addition, we can balance on these surfaces using the DC of a swim check. This effectively means we can stand on something like water and make it harder for enemies to reach us. Of course, enemies can still swim out there to get to us, but if they're not good at athletics, that might be a problem for them. And if we critically fail, we just fall into the water, which can be bad since this build won't be good at athletics, but as long as we have good acrobatics, we should be good. As I said, we're building a bard today, and we're going with the Polymath Muse. With Versatile Performance, we can use performance instead of other skills for most of the stuff we want to do with charisma-based skills. So, we only need to increase that instead of other charisma-based skills. Which means we can focus on things like recall knowledge. We still might want to be trained in those charisma-based skills, but only for situations where we need those charisma-based skills for other things. For example, diplomacy for gathering information, because versatile performance doesn't cover that. For skills, performance is going to be your most important. That will cover most of your charisma-based skills thanks to versatile performance. You're also going to need acrobatics to take advantage of your Lotus Leshy heritage. And you're going to need recall knowledge skills, particularly nature. And you'll understand why when I get to level 10. But religion is also very effective here. We're not going to have good intelligence, so Arcana and Occultism won't really come into play here. For your attributes, Charisma obviously needs to be your highest, followed by your Dexterity, and you're also going to need Constitution and Wisdom for this build. Intelligence won't matter as much, and obviously Strength is not something you're going to need for this build. Okay, for first level, obviously you're going to get that Versatile Performance feat, which I already talked about. Second, you're going to want to take Harmlessly Cute for your Ancestry feat at level 1. This will give us the Shameless Request skill feat, allowing us to make requests we normally wouldn't be able to make. In addition, if we roll Deception for initiative, we get a +1 bonus on the check. You could also take Leshy Lore here for more skills. Which one of these will be better will ultimately depend on your campaign and what your other party members are. For level 2, we'll be taking the Sorcerer dedication, and we're going to want the Fey bloodline for this, as that'll give us access to the primal list. Thus, we can cover our different damage types as well as target different defenses, because our bard spells will cover our will saves very nicely, and the primal list will cover our reflex and fortitude saves, as well as give us spells that target AC. Basically, having the primal list will allow us to cover roles that just the occult list wouldn't allow us to cover. Also, the Fey bloodline specifically does have a focus spell that will help us with our occult spell list. The primal list also gives us access to the heal spell, which is a very, very good burst healing spell. Better than Soothe. So that's why we can cover a little bit of our burst healing here. For level 4, there's really not much to say because we'll be taking basic sorcerer spell casting. So we have more primal spells now. We can actually cast primal spells beyond cantrips. So Things like breathe fire and stuff like that. For our 5th level Ancestry feat, we want to take Anchoring Roots. This gives us the Steady Balance skill feat, and if we're on solid ground, we can spend an action to anchor our roots, giving us better defenses against things like reposition, shove, and trip, which can be very debilitating even for a bard. With basic bloodline spell, we have access to the Fairy Dust focus spell. This allows us to make the target make a will save, and if they fail, or critically fail, they take a penalty on their perception checks and their will saving throws, thus allowing us to debuff them even further. Very effective against enemies that have low will saves. And of course, aren't immune to mental effects. For level 8, I've gone with Bloodline Breath, giving us access to even more primal spells. Again, not much to say here, just one more spell of each rank, which is always going to help. For our level 9 Ancestry feat, we're going to want to take Bark and Tendril. This gives us access to Entangling Flora, as well as Oaken Resilience as spells. We can cast those once per day without using spell slots. So, that means we can have better defense, and we can lower the opponent's speed, which is very effective for this build. The more spells we have access to with this build, the better this build's going to be. Having these spells once per day is definitely going to help. And the final feat for this build is going to be Esoteric Polymath. This effectively allows us to use occultism to have a spell book like a wizard, making us much more versatile with our occult spells. Granted, it is going to be hard because our intelligence is actually pretty low in this build, but having access to other spells beyond just what's in our repertoire is a big deal. And we'll need this to eventually take Impossible Polymath, allowing us to add primal spells to our book. Of course, that's all the way at level 18, so most of you probably won't even get that far, but it is an effective choice even if you never get that far. And for spells for this build, you probably want to take mostly buff and debuff spells on your occult list side. For your primal list side, you're mostly going to want to take spells that target different defenses as well as multiple targets, although you can take some cantrips to target AC. You'll also want to take the heal spell for your primal side, as well as the soothe spell if you want to on your occult side. Heal is just way too good to not have access to. But overall, you can just take spells you know are going to be useful and that you'll actually use, depending on what your other party members are doing, as well as what your campaign is like. For your free archetype, if you've got it, then you'll want to take your Sorcerer Archetype on that side of free archetype, and that means you can take other bard feats. If you take other bard feats, I recommend the ones that give you composition spells, particularly composition cantrips. Of course, Druid is also an effective option, as that will give you more versatility. And finally, the Eldritch Archer archetype is also effective here, as you'll be able to use your bow a lot more effectively with that. And that's the belt. Remember guys, if you're watching this on my original channel, then my other belts in this party will be on my new channel, Team Player Gaming Plus. In addition, if you want to play this belt beyond level 10, you can absolutely join my Patreon page and get a Google Sheet for this belt all the way up to level 20, as well as my other belts. And of course, if you're new to Pathfinder 2e, you can check out my TikTok. Links are all in the description. If you guys are interested in a party that uses items very effectively, you can check out this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.